If you have taken your kid to specialist after specialist, you've ran every test and tried every supplement, diet, therapy, and protocol, and you're still sitting there going, why is nothing working? There is one word, one concept, one missing piece that almost nobody is talking about. And once you understand it, everything is going to start to make sense. And that word is subluxation. See, by the end of this episode, we're going to make sure that you understand more about your child's nervous system than 99% of doctors even do. So let's go, buckle down. We're going to have a good time. This one's going to be kind of a long one. So guys, what subluxation actually is and how it actually affects your child's entire body, right? How what's called the perfect storm of early life stresses can set the stage for subluxations, and why traditional testing, lab draws, and even gut testing might miss on what's really going on, and how the inside scans that we do in our office can actually find what other tools most of the times could miss. And then most importantly, what the path forward can look like for your child with neurologically focused chiropractic care. See guys, the reality is our children are growing up in a different world than we did, right? Despite everything we know, our children are worse off than the generation before, with their nervous systems being simply overloaded. And this is the trend that's affecting widespread. See, even according to the CDC, 40% of school-age kids today have at least one chronic health condition. That's right, 40%. And this is according to the CDC, right? The autism, ADHD, anxiety, gut, sensory, sleep, immune epidemic is real. And parents, we're aware of it, right? And as parents, we start noticing signs pretty early on because we can feel it in our gut, right? And when you bring this up to your child's doctors, you're hit with some of their favorite phrases. They'll grow out of it, it's just genetics, and let's just wait and see, right? See, if your house kitchen catches on fire, the fire department doesn't go, well, let's wait and see if the next room catches it too, we'll do something, right? But yet, as parents, we are forced to accept this kind of an answer because where else do we turn to, right? Guys, the truth is our kids, they don't grow out of these things, right? They grow into the next wave. Colic will become ear infections. Ear infections become sensory issues, which become ADHD, which becomes anxiety. You see, it's the same nervous system. It's just a new label. See, it's called something different in each age group, but the actual root cause is nearly the same. It's stressed out, wound up, out of balance nervous system. See, most people, including even chiropractors, right? They'll define subluxation as a bone out of place. But guys, that's only about 10% of the picture, right? Subluxation is a neurological issue with 3 layers stacked on top of each other that go deep into the system. And yeah, the very first one is misalignment, right? It's a structural shift within the neurospinal system, which can lead to the fixation, restricted motions. These joints, they will lose their ability to move freely, which means they lose proprioception, which, by the way, we're going to dive into that a lot down the line because it is everything when it comes to children. Then, you have the neurological interference and balance. The brain stops getting clean data and starts getting stress signals instead. See, the problem is your kid was designed to operate at 5G speeds, right? We all use phones, right? They're designed to operate at 5G speeds. The subluxation drops them down to dial-up, right? So let's talk about this proprioception to nociception switch, right? Because this is where we go advanced, and this is the piece where most parents are not being taught by their doctors, right? See, proprioception is your body's GPS system. It is a constant stream of input from joints, muscles, ligaments, connective tissue telling the brain, here is where the body is at in space. Here's how much tone we need, here's how to coordinate this movement, here is what's safe. It is the single largest stream of sensory input the brain actually receives. It's more constant, it's actually more constant even than vision, right? Because a lot of times you'll sleep and whatnot, or just have your eyes closed. My child does that right now. They're like walking around with his eyes closed. He really relies on his balance right now, which is super fun. More important, it's actually more important than the gut-brain connection, and it's more foundational than almost anything else. See, when subluxation locks down a joint and restricts motion, your proprioception actually drops. And here's the kicker. When proprioception drops, nociception goes up. And nociception is the brain's threat and stress signal input. Pain, irritation, danger, something is wrong here. This is the red flag that's going on, right? It's a seesaw system. Less proprioception in, more nociception, right? If the brain stops getting everything is safe and coordinated signals, it will start getting alert signals instead. So for your child's brain is being told every second of the day that the body is under threat even when it's not. So where does this set up shop in most kids? The brainstem and the upper neck area, right? So this brainstem area is the big air traffic control system. It is coordinating your breathing, heart rate, digestion, immune function, sensory processing, motor control, and it does this all simultaneously, right? But when this air traffic control system goes down, see, airplanes can't land, but the brainstem can't operate. When the brainstem is operating, which is the operating system of the body, when this system crashes, every single program outwards starts to fail, right? This upper neck region over here is loaded with proprioceptors, and it also houses the vagus nerve, which is the wandering protector of the brain, of the neurospinal system, of the nervous system, and is the brake pedal of the entire nervous systems, right? So the brainstem itself, so let's dive a little bit more about that. Now, the brainstem itself has three basic domains, right? One of the biggest ones is going to be regulation, the sleep, digestion, immune tone, heart rate, breathing, but it's also the sensory processing, right? It's filtering input, detecting what is threat versus what is safe, establishing what we call sensory thresholds. It's also responsible for the motor development, muscle tone, reflexes, postural controls, milestones, speech and motor, planning. This is why the subluxation in the upper cervical region will create such wildly different looking symptoms in different kids, right? It's the same root, but it's a different expression. See, when the brainstem is subluxated and the vagus nerve is interfered with, the immune system will lose its off switch. The stress response loses its brake pedal and the brain goes blind to what's happening in the body, which is why these children are so stressed out. So how does this actually happen, right? How does this subluxation happen? What we call a perfect storm? How did this actually come up? Genetics will load the gun, environment pulls the trigger. See, the perfect storm has these multiple layers that we'd like to say that happens, and one of the first ones that we always see is one of the most common ones we actually see is going to be what's called the prenatal stress and maternal stress, fetal distress, and things like that, because cortisol actually crosses the placenta and this baby is literally soaking in mom's stress chemistry during the most critical neurological window of life. Guys, this isn't blame. Most moms had no idea. This is information, because when you're informed, you can make better decisions for your health, for your children's health, for down the line, and things like that as well. Secondary is going to be birth trauma and birth interventions, right? Unnecessary birth interventions, things like forceps, vacuums, Pitocin, inductions, prolonged pushing. You got C-section after long labors, even routine deliveries, are going to generate enormous mechanical force on the upper neck and brainstem as well. And this vagus nerve can be damaged before the baby ever even takes a first breath, right? This invisible pressure and force of the delivery room and all the different things that most of the parents, as we're going through this, we don't even have an idea that this is happening, right? And then you add upon the environmental storm, the toxic overload. See, guys, genetics don't change this fast, right? They love to, say like, oh, this is all genetic, this is all this, and we're just diagnosing it more. But the reality is, guys, genetics don't change this fast. The environment actually does, though. So the autism, ADHD, anxiety, autoimmune, and chronic illness explosion that we've actually seen in the last 20 to 30 years, it cannot be explained by genetics alone. What has changed dramatically is the world that our kids are developing in from conception forward, right? See, today's kids are marinating in a stew of stressors that grandparents never encountered. Pesticides and industrial chemicals, heavy metals in food, water, and air. Even the water has microplastics now, right? Ultra-processed foods erect gut microbiome from antibiotic and toxic exposure, and a chronic immune system activation that never ceases to get a break. See, every child, it's kind of like they have a bucket, right? Stress fills it, and when it overflows, the symptom spills out. And we can't always control what pours in, but we can do is increase the size of that bucket, right? Increase the capacity and improve the drainage of the system. So what does subluxation actually look like in real children, right? So the wound up and worn out patterns that parents will recognize instantly, which lets you know that your kid's nervous system is just stuck on the gas pedal and they're having what's called dysautonomia, right? This internal chaos and exhaustion all at the same time. Now, what this can look like is things like colic, reflux, constipation, ear infections, poor sleep, frequent illness, low or high muscle tone. We call it W sitting, toe walking, clumsiness. In sensory world, we're thinking more like, seeking or avoiding behaviors, meltdowns, overloads that can't filter. And brain-based signs that we're looking for are going to be things like speech delays, anxiety, focus issues, emotional dysregulation, stimming, tics, and things like that. So the three stages, so now I want to talk to you about the three stages of subluxation, right? And the path to neurological exhaustion, because the longer subluxation has been left alone to wreak havoc on the system, the more damage it creates, right? Because in the beginning, it will start off as what we call sympathetic dominance. then it would eventually lead to dysregulation, and then it leads to neurological exhaustion. And this is typically where kids start to regress and things like that. The biggest thing we really want you to know about all this conversation is, guys, your child isn't broken, right? They're not bad. They're not really defiant. They're overwhelmed. Their body is running a sprint while you're asking for a calm, right? So how does this actually get missed if this is what's happening in most of these children, right? Because in conventional healthcare, and guys, we're a part of it too. We have a kid, we take our child to the pediatrician and whatnot. But most of the time when we're there, all they're doing is just chasing symptoms. They're checking the height and the weight. They're doing basic motor milestones. And frankly, they're even starting to skip these now. And then they put all their focus on energy and just getting you on schedule, right? That's what our wellness visits are right now, right? Which makes no sense to us, but it is what it is. But if you go, then the next level you guys will go the functional medicine route. And functional medicine, guys, they are brilliant at gut, microbiome, nutrition, toxin, but there's also a gap, right? The nervous system controls every system functional medicine is trying to fix. So without addressing the neurological root, you're going to be treating the downstream effects of an upstream problem. And then there is, functional neurology, right? These guys work great on reflexes and brain-based rehab. This is a program that I'm actually educating myself in as well. But the problem is there is the order issue, right? Subluxation happens first, and then you get retained primitive reflexes. See, a lot of time moms are coming out to us and they're so worried about primitive reflexes. Retained primitive reflexes is a symptom of a nervous system that is stuck. That is not the cause, right? So if you try to integrate primitive reflexes too early, it just seems like it doesn't really work. And then you have, standard spinal chiropractic care, which will focus on pain and structure. They do a great job as well, but they will completely miss the neurological piece entirely, right? And then there is the supplemental spreadsheet trap. Parents will arrive with taking 30 to 40 supplements, spending thousands monthly, and their children are still not healing. See, you're doing all the right things. It's just the order is incorrect, right? This is what's the missing piece. The piece, it's hidden in plain sight, and you haven't been failing, guys. You've just been missing a specific piece of the puzzle, so you can't make the whole picture. But once you find it, everything else that you're doing will actually start to work. So how are we going to be finding the subluxation in the system, right? So we don't guess, we test, right? We look deeper, we look beyond the surface. We have these things called the insight scans. There are 3 objective neurological measurements that we do in this office. First one that is my personal favorite is going to be the neurothermal, which is going to be able to detect regional dysautonomia and actually helps us determine which organs, glands, and specific systems are actually struggling with dysfunction. Then you can tag along with that the neurospinal EMG testing, which is going to be measuring your motor system tension, asymmetry, confusion, exhaustion, which is what we also call like dyskinesis, basically abnormal energy expenditure, which is why these kids are always tired all the time. And then you have the heart rate variability, which is going to measure overall autonomic adaptability and reserves as well, because we're trying to make sure that the nervous system has proper capacity and whatnot. See, these scans, they will show together what is happening neurologically and not just what structure and what just posture is showing, right? This is going to give us an actual insight to how the nervous system is actually doing. At that point, we deliver what we call neurotonal adjustments. We don't call, chiropractors call neurotonal adjustments. These are going to be gentle, specific, neurologically targeted. So this is not going to be your traditional, cracking and popping that you're picturing, like you'll see YouTube videos and all the different stuff all over the place. We're talking about restoring signal clarity, not fixing bones. So the adjustments, in our office, especially for our children, we even like to say they're more like an unwinding system. They're very gentle. There's definitely no cracking and things like that happening for children in the office and things like that as well. We also have a technique called torque release technique, which is what we utilize in this office. It's an instrument assisted technique, so it's very, very gentle, and you still get the great results of chiropractic. Because overarching, what we're going to really try to do, and I guess the whole point of this video, is you have to build the foundation before the function. You have to get the nervous system regulated first, and then everything else that you've been doing, OT, PT, gut work, nutrition, it starts working better. It's called the multiplier effect, right? And what healing will look like is, the body has what I call soft signs first, right? Then you have the brain. So you're going to see better sleep, better digestion, immune function, motor, sensory, behavior, speech, cognition. It's always in that order because, we have a joke in the office. It's not rocket science, it's neuroscience, which means it's very predictable because the neurophysiology is very predictable. But here's what I want you guys to walk away with from today's video. If your child is having these chronic health challenges, they're not random, they're not just genetic, and they're not just how they are. There is a root cause. And there is a nervous system explanation, which means there is a clear path forward. I'm not here to tell you to, throw everything out that you're doing. I'm telling you to put your foundation in place first, then focus obsessively on the sequence and what we call the batting order of interventions, and the healing will start to happen in a more predictive, sequential fashion. So I'm here. My name is Dr. Shah with Inspire Chiropractic. We're in Dallas. We would love to get you guys scanned and evaluated at our office. But if you are anywhere around the world or this country, actually we have docs all around the world. We're going to put a link down below for pxdocs.com. Go on there, schedule a time, and get your children checked out so that way we can find out what's actually happening neurologically for them, because you deserve answers and your child deserves a foundation, right? We have this tagline that we use that all these doctors are really starting to use, but it really does mean everything to us, is every kid counts, expect miracles. Talk to you guys next week.